about a mile from Banner-on-the-Shannon, on the road to Aircourt. Esker School was built in 1858 by James Collier Harter. He was an absentee landlord from Manchester, but he was very well liked by his tenants, and he used his wealth to improve the estate and the lives of the people living here. You wouldn't think that from reading this account of The Landlord in the Irish Folklore Commission School Collection, which was written by a pupil of this school in the late 1930s.
Some landlords were natives of the district and some were migrants. They were looked upon as being cruel rulers. Evictions were carried out in the district. The evicted people went into towns and had to look for lodgings.
Harter was different. He bought the estate in 1852 for £8,000, which is about £1 million today. And then he spent another £4,000 on basic improvements, like drainage, roads, and helping people to upgrade their dwellings and farms, all under the management of the agent Thomas Hines. And then, remarkably, Harter wrote off the debts of the tenants and lowered the rents. In a few short years, the people of Esker went from living in abject poverty to lives of relative comfort, regularly winning medals at agricultural shows in Ballinasloe. In the 10 years that Harter was the landlord of Esker, no one was ever evicted, and emigration from the townland came to an end. It's a remarkable achievement when you think that only a few years earlier, people were dying of starvation by the roadside. Although an absentee landlord, Harter was a regular visitor to Esker and the nearby town of Banner. He made his first visit in 1854 with his 2 adult sons, and the newspapers tells us that they were met with a real Irish welcome. A large bonfire was lit, and cheers rang out when Harter promised his tenants that he would do everything in his power to assist them, even to treat them all to dinner in Banagher on payment of the half-year rents. The Esker tenants' dinner became an annual event in Banagher for the remainder of Harter's life. Harter was not a significant landlord here in Ireland. The Esker estate, which was his only Irish property, amounted to just over 1,700 acres, which was modest enough for the time. But he was a prominent public figure back home in Manchester. At the time he became Esker's landlord, James Collier Harter was High Constable of Salford and one of Manchester's richest merchants. He was also one of the city's greatest philanthropists, supporting numerous charities and paying for the building of schools and churches throughout Manchester and other parts of England. He was a driving force behind many of modern Manchester's public institutions, including the Manchester Art Gallery, the Manchester School of Art, and the Royal Infirmary, which he managed for 14 years and is still a major hospital today. In fact, the original of this portrait of Harter hung in the hospital boardroom until recently, when, sadly, it was destroyed by a water leak. All of these charitable endeavours were designed to improve the lives of working class people, to lift them out of poverty through education, and to enrich their lives through religion and the arts. And perhaps Harter was compelled to do this because he came from a humble background himself. He was the son of a struggling hatmaker and the grandson of a penniless gardener from Galway. The story of his rise to the top of England's new merchant class is one of fate, drama, and good business sense. But it's a story for another day. The school that Harter built for his tenants' children in Esker was designed by the English architect James Forth Kempster, who at this time was county surveyor for East Galway. It's a curious stone building, with Tudor revival features that might look more at home in the English countryside than overlooking the callows of the River Shannon. Above the school door is Harter's crest and initials, JCH, and the date of the building, 1858. The crest is a stag, which in heraldry is a symbol of peace and harmony. This document tells us that Harter paid £700 for the building of the school. and that he had it equipped and furnished with no expense spared. He also paid for a house for the schoolmaster and schoolmistress on 2 acres of land, and guaranteed their salaries up to £15 a year. He then handed the school over to the Board of Education. When the school opened on the 1st of April 1859, there were 31 pupils. Boys and girls were separated internally by a sliding wooden screen. There was a model farm attached to the school to provide training in agriculture. All of the students and the 2 teachers were Roman Catholic, and they were educated in that faith, although Harter himself and the other school patron, his friend Richard Simpson, were both Protestant. The official opening took place in August of that year. Harter was in attendance, along with local gentry, and newspaper accounts tell us that up to 100 children were treated to coffee, tea and cake. At the tenants' dinner in Banagher in 1862, which took place a few months after Harter's death from a stroke, the Inspector of National Schools declared that Esker School was one of the best that he had ever encountered. For almost 120 years, generations of local school children were educated here in Esker Schoolhouse, until it finally closed as a school in 1977. Since then, it's been used as a community hall for public meetings, sometimes even plays. Mass used to be said here once a month, and children used to have Christmas parties. Its most recent regular use was for card games. What the future holds for this school remains to be seen. This school has been a focal point of the community for almost 160 years, but it's also a monument. It's a monument to a good landlord who left Esker in a far better place than he found it, who turned an impoverished townland into a productive estate for the benefit of its people, the town of Banagher, for generations to come.